Welcome to the Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Caleb Teskey, and believe it or not, another great guest for you this evening here. I know I told some of you guys I was going to be diving into the social equity stuff and looking for folks down in Massachusetts to talk to, and that's what we're going to get up to tonight. I do want to do the usual homework off the top, man. My last guest, Luke Williams from Omerta Genetics. I'm sorry, I was having audio issues. I have no idea what happened there, but I really love talking to Luke, man. He always surprises me with his depth of knowledge. Just a really great guy. And I am going to get him back on the show for a rerun so that I can ask him the last of the questions without audio issues. My man, D French, his new album, All Saints Day, still slapping over here, D. Marty Rollins, Flying High, the great cannabis caper. You guys might remember that. He was a smuggler. They were running loads from Colombia. Super fascinating story. Talvin White out in Illinois. I still got to catch up with Talvin. Just some really great guests. And I got some cool stuff coming up, guys. Next Monday, I'm going to be doing Mondays from now on. I might add in another day, but we're going to start with Mondays. I have been slowing down a bit, but Kate from Yellow Bird. It's been great talking to Kate. And then I got this is a social equity delivery company down in Massachusetts, Blaze Express. It's run by a guy named Dwayne Harden. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy some of those conversations if you're interested in the social equity stuff, as I am. And I think that's all I got lined up so far. Yeah. My guest tonight, guys, this is going to be a good one. I was looking for social equity folks in Massachusetts. And this was one of my first leads here. And goddamn, we've had some excellent conversations on the phone. He's heavily involved in a lot of events down there too, which we are going to talk about, hopefully. But here, let's just bring him out from Infuzed Productions, guys. Please welcome to the show, Michael Thomasson. Mike.
What up, Caleb? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. It's a pleasure to have you on, man. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. I mean, you said it just before. We've already had a bunch of great conversations, so might as well bring it to the platform and continue to talk.
Before we get into anything serious, Michael, will you give us a 5-minute life story, please?
Absolutely. So I guess we'll start at the beginning, man. Born and raised here, Western Massachusetts. Grew up in Northhampton. Dad was a hippie. He's been growing weed my whole life, so that's kind of what started me, with the interest in cannabis to start. But as far as weed goes, man, I mean, I discovered it at a young age. I think I was 13 or 14. Started smoking and doing that sort of thing. And then quickly got into dealing. I came from a very poor background. We didn't have any money. And I was selling weed from an early age to mostly to support my own habit, I would say, but also to try to make a few dollars on the side. So I was probably a freshman in high school when I started really kind of getting into the game. And yeah, obviously that took me a lot of different places. Spent many years just learning to grow, teaching myself how to extract, everything you can imagine in the cannabis world, right? From packaging to extractions. But it wasn't until later on that I actually realized that this could be a legitimate business. And once medical marijuana came into play in Massachusetts, that's when I started kind of diving down the legality of cannabis. I believe I was like the third or fourth caregiver in the state of Massachusetts. So I started with that program. I did have some patients that I was treating, and it was around this time that I discovered Rick Simpson oil, RSO. And I had a couple cancer patients that I was treating with RSO. And we had some amazing results, man. Like, I've seen tumors shrink from cannabis oil. I have an MRI on my phone of a shrunken tumor from just using Rick Simpson oil. So those relationships and kind of discovering the medicinal value of cannabis really kind of launched me on a whole new trajectory, honestly. And I went from, in my mind, being kind of this hustler dealer to really trying to push for legalization, push for obviously medicinal purposes, the idea that cannabis can be used medicinally. And so becoming a caregiver in the state and kind of launching down that path is what then led me to the licensing and the social equity program and all of these other things. So as I became a caregiver in the state and I was treating these patients, unfortunately ran into some legal troubles. I was raided and arrested for growing cannabis here in Massachusetts. Even though I was a caregiver in the state, they didn't necessarily care. And so that was a pretty rough point. I was arrested. I did have to serve time here in Mass. And then upon getting out, that's when I launched Infuzed Productions. I started doing the cannabis events, started trying to kind of push more towards awareness and legalization and all these other things. And also applied for the social equity program. And that was a long 6 years ago. It's been one hell of a journey. And now here we are. This is what led me to you. Now I'm social equity participant. I'm in the process of licensing. I just got provisionally approved last week.
Oh, good.
And hopefully we can keep this thing rocking and rolling, man, and keep the ball rolling here. So that's what I got for you, bro.
Can I slow you down? I'd like to just rewind a little bit here and ask you about the medical caregiver program in Massachusetts and sort of what led up to you getting busted, dude. Because, I know there's a number of ways to qualify for social equity. Some of them are less pleasant than others, but I'd love if you would tell people what you are allowed to do as a caregiver, some of the details of the program down there.
Right. So it's definitely changed over the course of time. Initially, the caregiver program only allowed you as a caregiver to caregive for one patient, right? So you could have one medical patient that you cared for, which would allow you to grow for them, produce medicines for them, and then be reimbursed for cost associated with that grow. So it wasn't like you could, necessarily sell weed, but you could actually produce it for them and then be reimbursed. So it wasn't costing you money to be a caregiver. But the big flaw, obviously, is that for every one patient, you needed one caregiver. Not really realistic. Obviously, a lot of these patients can't grow. They might be living in apartments where they're not allowed to grow. They might not have the means to grow. They might just not have the knowledge to grow. And so to think that there's, one caregiver with all this knowledge in order to produce a medicine for each patient, it's kind of crazy. So clearly on my end, I pushed the envelope and I was a caregiver to more than one patient. And yes, certainly, was growing at the time in my mind legally. However, listen, bro, I've been a hustler my whole life, and I definitely was pushing the rules when I got raided. And so, I had to take my lumps. I knew what I was doing. I was trying to kind of walk that line of being in the legal market and in the illicit market. And listen, it came back and bit me. The police are very sneaky with how they pursue people like me at that time. And, I gave them the opportunity to get me. So, I can't blame anybody but myself. Listen, I think that I tried my best to walk that line and be on the legal side of things, but there was some things I was doing that weren't there. And so that gave them the opportunity to come get me.
Would you mind, sharing some of how that went down, Mike, as much as you're comfortable with? I know some of these stories are not super fun to recount, but I'd love to hear what happened, man.
Absolutely, man. Listen, I got nothing to hide, brother. So, essentially, as far as getting into the caregiver program, what I did is I rented out an old building, which was used to be a package store, and I knew the owner, so I was able to rent out that building. And then I got in there, I gutted it, I renovated it, and I turned it into, one grow room, one veg room, and a bedroom and living space for myself. And so the biggest problem with what I was doing, and the reason I was able to get rated like I was, is because the building I was in wasn't a residential building. It was a mixed-use building. It was deemed for business use. And so that was kind of the major flub. In the program at that time, it would only allow you to grow recreationally in your home. And so the fact that I wasn't in my home, that was one of the key factors. The fact that I didn't have an existing, deed or lease for that building was certainly another factor. And the way they were able to get a warrant was basically a 3-step process in order to prove that I wasn't a caregiver in the state. They say they look up your name, your date of birth, and your mother's maiden name are the registry keys for looking you up on the CGIS system, which is, the system that tells who's a caregiver and who's not in the state. And so, unfortunately, when the police looked me up to see if I was a caregiver, they, whether on purpose or not, they used my mother's wrong maiden name. And so I didn't show up in the database when they were looking for me as a caregiver. And so, that one mistake right there, I call it a mistake. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. That mixed in with the super high electric bill from the property and all these other factors, they were able to get a warrant, man. And they did. They came in, they busted me. And I was arrested there on the spot. I ended up having to serve about 6 months of a 2.5-year sentence. They suspended the other 2 years because throughout the process of fighting this case, I was able to prove that I was a caregiver in the state. I was able to go into a local law enforcement agency, have them print out my caregiver license. And so over the course of time, I did, at least show that I was trying to be legal. And so I think that was a big step in avoiding any real serious time, even though, 6 months still sucked. It took me away from my kids. It wasn't great by any stretch, but I also think it could have been a lot worse, So
what does it look like when these cops...
for sure. Lesson learned on my part. And I can say this, bro, honestly, yeah, I've been in the weed game forever and ever, but I was also, in a place in my life where I wasn't making good decisions. And that came as a real wake-up call for me. And it really did set me on a whole new trajectory, which in the long run, I'm quite thankful for, man.
Okay. What does it look like when the cops come through? Do they got guns out? What kind of raid are we talking here, Michael?
Crazy, bro. Full DEA raid, bro. These dudes came in with everything. They had all their weapons out. They kicked the door down. They smashed it in. They threw me on my face. They're yanking on me side to side, telling me to stop resisting. It's what you see on TV, bro. It's a real wake-up call, man. You wake up at 5:30 in the morning to your door getting kicked in. And, of course, coming from the streets, I think I'm getting robbed. I don't know what's going on. So I'm running around in my boxers looking for, a bat or something. And, no, before I know it, dude, I got 2 cops with fully automatic weapons pointed on me. And they're throwing me on my face, man. And the raid itself is, your adrenaline's kicking. So that's not necessarily, I guess, scary. It's just happening all so fast. To me, it was more like sitting in the car, cuffed and stuffed, when you're coming to that realization of oh shit, now this is real. Now, all these decisions I've made they're now biting me in my ass. And listen, I'm a dad, so of course my thoughts automatically are like, oh shit, what does this mean for my kids? When do I get to see my kids? So that was the real hard part for me, is just trying to accept that I was not in control anymore. You know what I mean? From that moment on, my kind of life was in somebody else's hands. So yeah, tough, man. It was definitely quite an experience, I'll say.
What was the outcome of that? I assume that might have, and I know you're worried about your kids, but I assume maybe that had some impact on, your life as well after that went through court, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's impossible for it not to. And I mean, I think we've all, heard stories about, and we all know people who have, kind of gone down a bad path and have not been able to recover. And I know for me, I've always had my dad in my corner. And when I did get arrested, he was one of the only ones to, come visit me. And we have this rule ever since that day. And it's called rule number 1. And rule number 1 is do everything in our power to remain free. Don't put ourselves in situations that puts our life at risk like that again. And so, you asked me how it affected my life. Yeah, for those 6 months, being locked up, not seeing my kids, missing certain holidays and that, you don't get those moments back. So, clearly it affects you in a negative way, on those things. But like I said before, to me, this was my opportunity at kind of a wake-up call, my opportunity to change the way I was moving, the way I was doing things. I did see it as just that. I saw it as my chance to kind of change where I was heading. And, I don't think everybody has that mindset. And listen, I didn't have it at the beginning. At first, when I got arrested, it was blame, blame the cops, blame everybody. They should have known, they should have left me alone. But that's not the reality of the situation. I put myself in this spot, and it was only on me to try to get myself out of this spot. And so, yeah, man, I took my arrest as that chance to just be better. And since then, I can tell you this flat out, bro. Haven't done not a single drug. I don't drink. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, the changes in my life that kind of were forced on me and pushed on me, I think I needed more than I can even admit at times. So, everything happens for a reason. I'm a real believer in that. And as shitty as that whole thing was, I can kind of see the reason now looking back, and see the trajectory now of where I feel like I'm heading. And, those are the things that make me feel like, all right, maybe I'm on the right track here.
And I'm going to tie this into the social equity program there, which is how we ended up talking. But you also mentioned that I think a month ago you had your record sealed, which sounded like a really nice thing.
Yes. So again, going through this whole social equity process, I mean, for as long and draining as it has been, it's like it's opened my eyes to these other opportunities, which one of them being getting my record seal. So in talking with, consultants and lawyers and all the people you have to talk to get to this point, you get to talk to some amazing people that are doing work like this and helping people seal their records. So yes, as of just about 1 month ago, my record is completely sealed. When I was arrested, I ended up taking a plea deal and copping out to 3 drug felonies. And man, to have those gone after 8 years of, dealing with that. Listen, but felonies are crazy, right? It's like I went from being a stay-at-home dad to now I'm a multiple felon. So even like chaperoning a kid's field trip, I can't even do that sort of thing. It's like that was the stuff that hurt me more like than applying for a job or something. It was all those other little pieces that came with, the notation of being a felon. And So now, 8 years later, to kind of look back and be like, all those felonies, all that time, and here we are at the end of the path, and I'm still chasing the same goal. Like it didn't necessarily deter me, which maybe it should have done, but I don't know. It's only kind of kept things pushing towards the ultimate goal, which is, listen, I've been buying and selling weed my whole life. I want to continue to do that in the legal market. I think I've got a knack for doing it. I seem to have gotten by pretty well up till this point. So I just want my chance to succeed in the legal market and try to live this little dream that I've created for myself here.
Word up, Mike. And hang on, I'm supposed to slap this up. I got a little lost here. I'm with Michael Thomasson, guys, at Infuzed Productions here. And yeah, so now let's tie this into the social equity program, because that's where my notes are a little disorganized, but that's what I got here. And so, maybe for a casual viewer, maybe you could tell us what the program entails. And I sure would like to ask you about the training classes, the cohorts that you went through there. But you start that wherever you started out and how you got involved, if you would, please, Mike.
Yeah. So I think in general, I've always been trying to kind of be on the forefront of this whole legalization thing. That's why I was one of the first caregivers. That's why I was one of the first to apply for this, social equity program. Essentially what the social equity program really means is it's kind of them throwing a bone to the less fortunate. So for instance, people with arrest records like myself, people who have been, anybody who has, been picked on or singled out or, harassed for marijuana or drugs in general. All you really need is the story of how you were negatively impacted by the war on drugs. Maybe your father was arrested. Maybe you were pulled over and harassed as a teenager. Really, this program is for people like me, and people of color and women and anyone who was negatively impacted by the war on drugs. So clearly with my case, right, being that I was raided and arrested for growing marijuana, I'm kind of a shoo-in for the program. And I got this ball rolling just about 6 years ago, kind of right on the heels of my arrest, and again, trying to push things forward and make sure I'm doing them in the right way. Started applying for this, social equity license, and I was granted a social equity license immediately. And then you have to go through more of a process, right? They start doing background checks. They do your fingerprints. Obviously, you have to have business plans and all these other things in place in order to get to where I'm at right now, which is provisionally licensed. But the start of it was rough, because even the way.
Michael, you're breaking up a little bit here, man. I hate to interrupt you there, but I'm losing the audio. Uh-oh. We might have lost Michael, guys. I might have to riff here for a minute. I can tell you guys, it's Michael Thomasson from Infuzed Productions. Michael, I've lost your audio here. Your video's frozen up, and I've lost your audio. I know he was planning to do this interview from a computer at home. He didn't make it home, so he's trying to do it from a phone. Maybe we can get Michael back here. Boy, that's a bummer. If we don't get Michael back, we're going to get him back immediately when he's on a computer, because we're just getting to the good stuff here, guys. And now I lost him. Yeah, there he goes. Okay, well, let's see if he pops back in. I plugged some of the shit coming up again, guys. Kate Corbett next Monday, the 23rd. I'm going to be doing all the shows on Monday, 5 p.m. Kate Corbett from Yellowbird. She's been super great to talk to. Dwayne Harden from Blaze Express. We're going to get these Massachusetts social equity interviews in here, and I think they're going to be really fascinating. What do we got? Oh, there we go. Well, we're gonna give Michael a minute here. I'm gonna try to see if we can get him back. See if he's messaging me. Gotta tell you, Infused Productions guys, the events that Michael's been doing down there seem super cool, and we were going to talk a lot about the idea of social consumption as well. Lounges or public consumption and shit like that too. If he doesn't get back in here, I might cut it there and wait till he's got better service and finish this interview then. But again, guys, if you didn't check out my interview with Luke Williams from Noteworthy Genetics, that I'm not sure what that audio problem was. I think this one was on Mike's end. The last one was definitely on my end, and I'm not sure what happened, but this interview was great too with Janet from the Miss Lindenville Diner. They're still looking for someone to buy that, I think. Or Lieutenant Governor John Rogers. We're doing politics over here too. Yeah, we'll see. I got nothing from Mike here, guys. I might just cut this and then we'll try it again tomorrow. Let's do that. I'm your host, Caleb Teskey. That was Mike Thomasson from Infused Productions. We are going to pick this up again, but, it's not working right now, but whatever. The devil's in the details, and the details are in the fine print. Peace.